stand on the Hagerstown Cultural Art Trail?
A bad investment and a good idea is still a bad investment. Do I believe that the cultural trail would be an asset at some point in time in our city? Yes, I do. I actually do. And I know that the mayor and I have talked about it. Our sister city, Basel, Germany, did basically the same thing the whole way through the city. The point is that, you know, you've got to make investments in your community that will return an investment to the taxpayers who are making that investment. Unfortunately, the cultural trail, there is no return on investment to the taxpayers. But we're using $2.2 million of taxpayer money in order to build this trail. Again, it's a great idea, wrong time, bad investment, no return on investment.
Well, first of all, the $2.2 million is a conglomeration of a lot of parties putting in money, not just the city of Hagerstown. And the second is I walk this trail about 4 times a week. But I want to talk about the Dagmar. Part of the impetus of this trail is to connect our arts and education district with our city park, 2 of our best assets in this city. You take the Dagmar, about 6 months ago, it removed a significant number of its addictions-oriented, pedophile, whatever you want to call it, subsidized type housing. That won't last forever unless there's some type of public investment in that space around it, so that properties like that don't reverse course to that guaranteed subsidized income. It's just a fact. And this investment is a $2 million investment to spur on those private properties around it, not a $40 million investment where you're waiting on mysterious private money to come forward.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
You know, the trail has been contentious most recently because of the money. Now, as Mr. Alshire alluded to, not all the money is from the city. That being said, I do agree with Mr. Burchi that it's a good idea. I just don't know if the time is right. I do applaud the council for at least moving forward with something that was developed through the Urban Partners Plan. This plan just didn't sit on the shelf, as the mayor has alluded to. So it is nice to see that there was some affirmative, moving forward with that. Again, though, I don't know if it was the right time. I don't think that the trail itself is going to provide the area that's going to be able to be developed just because of the trail. Now, originally there was supposed to be a stadium in that area. That's obviously been contentious for many, many, many years. If that trail happened to be part of that stadium situation, well, I think that could be a positive thing. But right now, just having the trail with nothing around it, I don't see the immediate return of economic impact from that trail. Thank you.
Ms. Keller?
I think when we look at the Urban Partners Plan that there are some great parts to it, the trail being one of them. I do agree, I don't necessarily believe this is the right time for it. I think we need to look at the plan and the things that we want to do for Hagerstown and prioritize them. Money is money, so if we're spending money, we need to make sure we are spending it in the right area in the correct order. I don't necessarily think the trail should have been first in that. I think there are other areas of our town that we need to cater to first, and then do the trail. You know, the Arts and Entertainment District is beautiful, City Park is beautiful. It will be great to have a trail one day. I just think we need to prioritize the order in which we're accomplishing things, and don't necessarily think that that was the right order.
Thank you. Are there other people with questions? Please raise your card if you have them so they can be collected. I was going to say that earlier, actually. Okay, and the next question will be directed to Ms. Cooper, Ms. McDonald-Klein, Mr. Metzner, and Mr. Munson. What can the city do to offset the cost of parking for businesses who will locate their businesses and bring their employees into downtown?
the city do to offset the cost of parking if their employees come downtown? I'm sorry.
No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, thank you very much. I personally believe that to offset the cost of parking, just for one thing we can do is continue doing things that we already do. For people who work and go to school, everything downtown in the downtown area, as someone who used to go to school in the downtown area, like right across over here at the beauty school where I went to school, they have the option of purchasing a monthly pass for a great discounted rate where you're able to park in a specific area, not have to pay meters, and leave the meter parking for people that are coming in to do shopping, which also creates more revenue, but doesn't create an unnecessary imposition on those who are working in the downtown area. Allow them to bring more money into their own families while allowing utilizing those businesses to utilize our meter parking and create the revenue.
Okay?
One of the prices you have to pay is to pay for parking if you're going to have a business in downtown. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, we could raise taxes, but I don't think anybody out there wants us to get rid of the parking fees, but I'm not going to vote for that. When I come downtown, I pay for parking, and I really think people clearly understand they're going to have to do that. I mean, I wish I had an answer to make everything free, but I don't. As Lou talked a little bit earlier, it's all about money, and it's all about balancing budgets.
Mr. Metzger?
It is very simple. I mean, when you ask that question, there's not a city in the United States you're not going to and paying for parking. Parking debts cost money. Parking lots costs money. So it's very easy how you do it. You have the taxpayers pay for it. So it's like squeezing a balloon, you know? If you want to tell people that you're going to subsidize parking so businesses will come here, then the taxpayers have to pick it up. Now, there is a time, if a business is coming in and they're going to pay enough taxes, you know, you discuss things with economic incentives. But on the all in all, the way you pay for parking is with either taxes or user fees. User fees are the meter and the money you pay for the debts.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald? Time?
I can't complain about the parking. When I go downtown, I get in a meter that gives me 2 hours, and usually I don't need more than 2 hours to be downtown. I just don't think there's a problem with paying what we have to pay. If you get down to Frederick and on down the road, you have to pay a lot more for parking. So I think we should be satisfied that our parking fees are low.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Geisbert. Ms. Nye, Mr. Pastora, and Mr. Reyes. How do we get the county, the school system, the city, and the business community to work together to solve problems, leverage resources, and move us forward? In 1 minute.
Well, we've been trying to do that for 3 years and almost 4 months now, but I do think part of it is, bringing people together to have these courageous conversations. I was really pleased to see in the paper today the county administrator's public statement of support for a really major project, even more than just the academic portion of what everyone has called a hub. And like I said before, I don't care what we call it as long as we do it. So again, I think it's bringing folks together. Really, my way of doing things is making data-driven decisions, making sure we have stakeholder feedback and input, and then focusing on continuous improvement. So I think bringing people together, having these courageous conversations, and really seeing what everybody can do collectively is the way to go.
Thank you. Ms. Knight?
Everything that the mayor just said, I agree with. So be paying attention, please.
Mr. Quascara?
Just a quick note, it's Plotsboro, with all due respect.
Sorry.
So I think, and the city has done, under the current administration, a great job of bringing stakeholders together and going through projects. I mean, I myself ran the Community Gardens Committee that built the community garden here on South Potomac Street, which is something that we're very proud of. And I think the example that to be taken from that is, at the end of the day, ideas are wonderful, plans are great, but I think execution is where the rubber meets the road. So what we need to do is to focus on having the process in place, having a plan in place, but then also realizing having a plan of how to get the plan in place or get the plan executed. I think that the difference oftentimes, and I work with both governments and businesses, in business, you go broke if you don't do things correctly and if you're not efficient. In government, oftentimes, there's a lot more cushion. So I think that's where decisiveness comes into play.
I believe that all the stakeholders from here in the city of Hagerstown, Washington County government, the Board of Education, Washington County Board of Education, we got to stop politicizing and just come together for what's going to be best for the city, what's going to be best for the people, because it's, what's going to be best for the city of Hagerstown that matters. I think the politicking, not agreeing with the city council, not agreeing with the city, not agreeing with the Washington County government, I think we just have to put aside our differences and do what's best for our city and do what's best for the people in the city. And I think that's what's going to make Hagerstown a better place.
Okay, next question for Mr. Henstry, Alshire, Quarterman, and Keller. There's a lack of support, excuse me. There's a lack of support for youth activities in Hagerstown. How do you feel it adds to the perceived gang problem in the city?
Can you repeat the question, ma'am, please?
There is a lack of support for youth activities in Hagerstown. How do you feel it adds to the perceived gang problem in the city?
There are things that children can do. They have Little League Baseball, they have youth football, kids can go play sandlot football or anything like that. They need to find role models that they can look up to and they can try, like a superhero, somebody to look up to, like your mom, your dad. People have to try and set good examples for them to follow. I'm sorry, I don't think I mentioned the question correctly.
Youth activities and how they would change the perceived gang problem in the city.
If you give the children something to do, they won't fall into the wrong crowd. That's plain and simple. Idle hands make. Thank you.
Mr. Alshire?
Well, unlike a lot of folks who want to talk about a stadium, I feel it's sort of like Groundhog Day every time I hear the word. I feel like Bill Murray in that movie, and I'm meeting the gentleman on the street for the first time all over again. I'm tired of talking about that issue. The issue that I did want to talk about, that I've been talking about for years now, nobody seems to want to listen, is instead of spending money on a baseball stadium, spending money on an indoor recreational center for our youth. It is ridiculous to me that we have about 500 people that go to the average baseball game in this city, and we have thousands of our parents and our children leaving this city every week to go play indoor football, indoor lacrosse, indoor soccer, indoor field hockey. I just don't understand why we don't look at that opportunity, that gift horse in the mouth, and say, let's build that place here that people actually want to go to as a real amenity, than an amenity that nobody seems to want to go to.
Thank you. Mr. Quarterman?
There's a couple of issues there with that last statement. I mean, there's only 500 people who go to the baseball games now because of the way our administration has currently treated this viable business in our community. That being said, that's not the question here right now. The question is about engaging youth to not have them involved in gang activity. And as in most of these issues here, we need to take a collaborative approach, whether it's working with our local Parks and Rec department, working with our schools and after-school programs. We need to get kids involved. We need them to be involved in things that are going to be productive. That way that they too can become productive members of our society. I do agree with your soccer complex. I think it's more of a and/or than one or the other, as the mayor's alluded to before. There's a ton of kids involved in soccer. It's a great program. You and I played soccer growing up. So if we can find a way to do it, sure. It all comes down to money, though. Okay? If we can find the money, if you have a model for it, let's talk about it. Thank you.
Ms. Keller?
I think as a community, we have done better recently with the events like the big slide that we had downtown. There are a lot of community events that we've been trying to push, which I think is great. I think Hagerstown has a lot of activities for youth. We have an ice rink that is very underutilized. I trained there, I taught there. They have a wonderful hockey and figure skating program that people could be putting their children into. But there are still people in Hagerstown who don't know we've had an ice rink after 15 years. The fairgrounds have been built up. There are soccer fields there. There are baseball fields there. And when you go see it, a lot of times it's adults. So my question is, where are all the adults? Where are the leaders that are taking the children out to do things? We need to be volunteering more. We need to be engaging in after-school activities and making sure these children have a way to get there and a role model to help them with the activities, because the activities are there. We just need to embrace them, support them more, and publicize them more.
Thank you. Next question will be directed to Mr. Brucci, Ms. McDonald-Klein, Mr. Metzner, and Mr. Munson. How can the city by the way, your questions are wonderful. I'm trying to get a broad scope. Some of them are a little repetitive of things we've already covered, so just scream at me afterwards if you're upset. I used to be an assistant principal. I can handle it. How can the city revitalize City Market? What are the city's plans to revitalize the City Market?
I was just down there actually last Saturday and talked to some of the vendors that are still there. We have up until probably the last couple of years, we've had a thriving city's farmer market on Saturday. We needed to do one of the things that, and Penny can attest to this, that we told our city administrator to do, that was told to him to do by the council, which was to put the bakery equipment in the back room so we could have a bakery on site 6 days a week to sell bread and other pastries to local businesses in downtown and local restaurants. If we would have had that, then we would have had the opportunity to have somebody who could actually run that market 6 days a week. You could be the overseer of that market. Currently, we don't have an overseer of the market. And you can see, when you go down there on a Saturday right now, you can see the emptiness inside that market. So we had a thriving farmers market. We don't today. And we need to get that back. And we can get that back.
Ms. McDonald-Klein?
Will you repeat the question?
Yes.
I'm having a hard time hearing, and I have a new hearing aid.
Oh, dear.
Well, I don't know too much about the farmer's market. I have gone there, and I think it's, they offer a lot of things, and everybody should go. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, not many people want to get up that early. That is a project that I'd have to look into before I could say anything more about it.
That's a good question and a difficult question. And the city administration has been working on it. We put out an RFP to try to attract somebody to run the market. And we found nobody who has yet indicated interest. The building is in need of substantial expense to repair. And while this farmer's market has been a success in the past, I'd say Councilman Alshire has brought up on more than one occasion the changes that have taken place in our society over the last 5 to 10 years with the amount of farmers markets and direct sales from farms whether it's on Route 64 or in Boonesboro or everywhere else, this farmer's market is no longer the only place and certainly not the most convenient. So we're actively working on it, but there is not an easy answer to it. We would like to see it succeed, but again, it gets down to taxpayers' money and how much are we going to invest. Thank you.
Mr. Munson?
I can't contribute a word more than Mr. Metzner has contributed. He hit the target on that one. Mr. Aylshire has on occasion talked about the possibility of closing the farmer's market and putting a program from the University of Maryland there. And perhaps that's what it will come to. Fact is that farmers markets are opening all over the place, and it's really very difficult to compete downtown in the center of Hagerstown, as much as we desperately need a good food outlet in downtown.
Thank you. Next question for Ms. Cooper, Ms. Nye, Mr. Moscura, and Ms. Reyes. What are your ideas to support city code requirements regarding rental properties, specifically concerning poorly maintained properties?
I believe this is actually another very interesting question. The fact that a lot of the rental properties, the responsibility falls to the owner of the property, the person who's renting the property out, to do the things like the upkeep of the property, snow removal in the wintertime, and things like that. I think one thing that would really help is to take a little bit of that burden away from the property owner and put some of that onto the tenant and have the tenant help out with those things and contribute to the upkeep of the property, and so it's not falling all on the property owner, because a lot of these people do have multiple properties, and it gets kind of difficult to provide the upkeep in a timely fashion. So I believe to take some of the, not all of the responsibility, I believe the property owner does need some responsibility, but to take some of that and share that with the tenant, I think would create a partial, at least partial solution.
Okay, Ms. Nye?
Well, we better go back 25 years, because you would have then seen a city that was a city. When I came on council, it was back in 2001, it was a fight then to be able to get code to where code should be. We had 2 code enforcement officers. By the time they got done one section of town, it took a year for them to get back to that section of town. We implemented at that time that we had 6. 6, we at least were seeing a stride. We were able to get ahead of the game. As it turned out, the 3.5 years that I was not in council, code was relaxed and relaxed drastically. We now are back up to 6 code enforcement officers and hoping that the stride will now continue on, because this is the only way that we are going to be able to see an improvement, and that is by having our code enforcement officers to do what they're doing.
I think that Councilwoman Nye actually hit the nail on the head with this one. If you talk to folks about downtown, we talk about all the various issues that downtown has in terms of revitalization. The biggest one of them is we have a finite, very small number of property owners that own most of the dilapidated properties around downtown. And code enforcement is really the only means that the city has in order to either force these folks to sell out or improve their properties and bring them up. The reality of the matter is we have this group of property owners that have treated Section 8 housing as a guaranteed income, and they really have no incentive to do anything with these buildings if there's no stick approach from code enforcement to force them to. I think the approach that was proposed, that tenants take more responsibility for rental properties, is unrealistic. That's not the way rental properties work. The owners are responsible for the property, and they really should be keeping it up to the code, and that's it.
I believe if we're going to have economic development and growth in building our city with new homes, new businesses, I believe the coding, has to be the process has to be a little more expedited. I think sometimes businesses kind of hesitant to may come to a city, Hagerstown, if they see that the passing the codes for getting the building permits and so on is kind of lax or is procrastinated on it. So I think it's kind of like a catch-22. I think we do need code enforcers that for buildings that are being dilapidated, that's not being taken care of. But at the same time, I believe the city code inspectors can move more expeditiously to attract more business owners that they won't go through a lot of loopholes and a lot of red tape for development and redevelopment.
Okay, we are running out of time. We have two mayoral candidates who have not had as many questions.
I'm fine.
So I have,
I really
okay, so I will give either or both of you the chance to answer this question, and then we'll move to our closing comments. And it's from someone who moved here in 2008. I feel crime has not only increased, but also in security. Do you think it's because of gang violence or the heroin epidemic? And what do you plan to address or reduce this issue?
Is that for me?
Yep.
Well, crime is an issue for anyone to whom it occurs. So anyone who is a victim of crime is going to be an issue. But I would challenge folks to really look at the data and compare Hagerstown to any other city of similar size, and you'll find that we are as safe or even safer in many cases than cities of a similar size. So, when I worked at church camp, we were doing risky things like ropes courses and all that. We always said safety is an attitude. And I think that is really what a lot of this comes down to. And quite frankly, we have a diversity problem in Hagerstown. And the problem is that many people don't accept the diversity that we have. And so when people are not in their comfort zone, they don't feel safe. So I understand that. But again, I would challenge folks to really look at the data. I hear Councilmember Alshire talk about walking the streets all up and down all hours of the night. And I don't think most of the time he's witnessing any crime, and I think that would be the case for anyone who walks around. Thank you.
Mr. Street, would you like to address the question or no?
Yes, ma'am, I will. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Mr. Geis first, or David, made some good points. Also, the gang and the drug problem sometimes do go hand, well, not sometimes, a lot of the times do go hand in hand. You can't try and take care of one without taking care of the other. We could do classes to help educate the community on how to deter crimes, how to be able to make an anonymous, I do apologize, an anonymous tip to the police and be able to make sure that they give the proper information and stuff so it can be short and sweet and the police can have the proper information where they can be able to catch the culprit. Also, the citizens need to come together and stop placing all the burden on the police officers' backs. Because we can't hold them, they can't work with us if we don't work with them. We must come together and work with each other instead of keep on labeling the police as the bad people or they're just horrible. None of them is horrible. They're all great people and they have a job to do as well. Thank you.
Okay, for our closing questions, each candidate will